This video is brought to you by teepublic. Right now you can get my new shirt promoting this retrospective series. Also, Amazon Music Unlimited. Download the app to have access to your favorite songs and podcasts. And the best part, no ads. Get your first month for free. Links in the description. Let's go back for a minute to the year 1992. Bill Clinton won the presidential election, becoming the 42nd president of the United States. Grunge fashion hits the scene. The largest mall in the world, Mall of America, opens its doors in Bloomington, Minnesota. Euro Disneyland opens in Paris and becomes one of the most infamous theme park failures in history. And we see the introductions of Crystal Pepsi, Todd McFarlane's Spawn comic, Madonna's sex book, the video phone, and the first smartphone. Notable news events include George H.W. Bush pardoning former Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger and 5 others that were involved in the Iran-Contra affair. Serial killer and heartthrob Jeffrey Dahmer is sentenced to prison. U.S. Supreme Court reaffirms the rights to abortion. And the L.A. riots, following the acquittal of police officers responsible for the beating of Rodney King. On the music scene, we saw the rise of Arrested Development, Billy Ray Cyrus, Sir Mix-a-Lot, and Criss Cross with their hit single, Jump. And Whitney Houston breaks records with her cover of Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You, which spent 14 weeks on a Billboard Hot 100 for the movie The Bodyguard. Speaking of which, popular movies this year include Basic Instinct, Sister Act, Wayne's World, Batman Returns, Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, and Disney's Aladdin was the highest grossing film that year. While in video games, we saw the debuts of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Street Fighter 2, Super Mario Kart, and Mortal Kombat. In television, Sinead O'Connor becomes a controversial figure after ripping off a picture of the Pope on SNL. Johnny Carson ended his run on Tonight Show, and we saw the debut of hits like Batman the Animated Series, X-Men, Mad About You, Martin, MTV's The Real World, and the Sci-Fi Channel. Also, everyone's favorite purple dinosaur, Barney, was skyrocketed to stardom with the debut of his hit PBS show, Barney and Friends. As far as animation goes, while Fox's The Simpsons continued to dominate primetime, with many trying and failing to get a piece of the pie, there was a slow decline on Saturday morning. Most notably, NBC got rid of animation altogether on their Saturday morning lineup in favor of tween-oriented sitcoms due to the success of Saved by the Bell. While newcomers Fox Kids and the Disney afternoon lineup will be a force to be reckoned with on weekday afternoon. Of course, Nickelodeon had their oh-so-popular Nicktoons brand, but at the time there were only 3 shows: Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy. Billionaire Ted Turner, who had just bought the Hanna Barbera library for $320 million, and previously the MGM and the pre-1948 Warner Brothers cartoons, had an idea for a network that could show cartoons 24 hours a day. A cartoon network, if you will.
Okay, wait there. Quite understand.
Quick, hurry up.
All right. How do I look?
Fred. Come on, Olive. Ready?
Ready. Take it from the top.
Okay, boys. 1, 2.
Yogi Bear is smarter than the average bear. Yogi Bear is always in the ranger's hair. The biggest show in town is Huckleberry Hound for all you guys and gals. Scooby-Doo, looking for you. Scooby-Doo, where are ya? Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, have a Hanna Barbera
Hello, folks. Welcome to the world's first and only Cartoon Network, the home of the cartoon stars.
On October 1st, 1992, Turner launched the Cartoon Network. At the time, the idea of a network that showed cartoons all day, every day was a pretty risky move. No one ever attempted something like this before. Imagine, no sitcoms, no game shows, no talk shows, just cartoons. What you're seeing right now is a presentation pitch made by Turner to convince potential investors to buy.
Will people tune in on all Cartoon Network? Sure. Right now, ratings are consistently strong on all cable cartoon shows. Wherever and whenever tunes run on cable, they perform well.
The channel will be heavily promoted in print ads as well as other Turner stations like TBS and TNT. On its first day, the channel aired catalog owned by Turner Broadcasting, such as MGM, Warner Brothers, Ruby Spears, and of course, Hanna Barbera Productions, introducing them to a new generation of viewers. The channel launched with a special event called Droopy's Guide to Cartoon Network, hosted by MGM favorite Droopy. And the first cartoon to ever air on the network was the Bugs Bunny short, Rhapsody Rabbit. Notable programming blocks include Toon Heads, an anthology series discussing trivia about cartoons from the golden age of animation, Down with Droopy D, Super Adventures, a block featuring 60s Hanna-Barbera action cartoons, and Bugs and Daffy Tonight, a block featuring classic Looney Tunes shorts, Turner owned for the pre-1948 888P package. There are also innovative programs, such as 1993's The Moxie Show, yet another anthology series featuring classic cartoons, hosted by the first CG real-time cartoon character, and 1994's Space Ghost Coast to Coast, the 60s Hanna-Barbera superhero revamped as a talk show host. Cartoon Network will require high ratings. It would be added to more and more cable systems, and by 1994, it became the 5th most popular cable channel in the US. Now, before we go any further, I would like to give recognition to someone who deserves just as much credit for CN as Ted Turner. Enter founder Betty Cohen. Cohen was the former director of marketing at TNT at its launch, responsible for their programming and promotion department. She also launched the NFL and NBA packages, which became very popular with male audiences. Impressed, Turner put her in charge in the creation of the Cartoon Network. She would be responsible for many highlights of the network's golden age, including the Cartoon Cartoons brand, Cartoon Fridays, Toonami, Adult Swim, and CartoonNetwork.com. She was stepped down due to creative differences in 2001.
I never said just cable network. I never said kids network. I said world and I said brand. I defined the vision broader. You become as big or as small as you define your future.
In addition to their cartoons being the core contributor to the Cartoon Network, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera were the creative consultants for the channel, as well as serving on the network's advisory board, which is founded by head of programming Mike Laszlo, along with Fritz Freeling, Ren and Stimpy creator John Kay, and veteran voice actor Don Messick. Their studio will continue to make animated programs for Saturday morning, such as a revival of The Addams Family, capitalizing the success of the previous year's Barry Sonnenfeld film, as well as several television specials, and take over production of the final season of Deke's Captain Planet with the new adventures of Captain Planet.
Captain Planet, he's the man, leading the Chargers' #1 band. Check him out, you're gonna see. He's the Mega Mac Daddy of ecology. Captain the hero with the gungeon.
Meanwhile, Turner knew it needed a fresh creative talent to help them get their new cable channel off the ground and revive the reputation of the once dominant Hanna-Barbera Productions. So President Scott Salsa hired Fred Seibert to become the new president of Hanna-Barbera. In theory, this seemed like a good idea. After all, this was the same man responsible for the branding of MTV at its launch. It was one of the people responsible for the I Want My MTV campaign. He would then help resurrect the low-rated Nickelodeon in the mid-1980s, getting them first in the ratings in 6 months and launching Nick at Night. There was just one problem.
I know nothing about cartoons. He goes, oh, you do all those logos for Nickelodeon. I said, that's 10 seconds of wiggling the logo, and I hire animators to do that. I don't know anything about that. I've never seen a storyboard. I've never read an animation script. I said, look, it couldn't get worse. So Alan and I decided to close Fred Allen. So I took the job. I arrived in June of 1992 to 300 or 400 employees who had no idea what I was doing there. And truth be told, I had no idea what I was doing there. I was scared to death. They sit me down in what had been Bill Hanna's office And they had now said, was my office. I'm like, well, doesn't Bill want this office? No, he wants to be as far away from, he had a little office on the 3rd floor. Mm-hmm. He was 82 years old. Right across the hall was Joe Barbera. They were both signed for life as consultants to the studio. You know, this is a really tough position to be in. Here were these two men who had basically been part of inventing the cartoon business as we knew it. Not just television, but in all their years doing Tom and Jerry at the MGM studio and stuff. They were truly part of the innovation that created the animation business. But it was clear that they had lost the mojo in terms of what to do for the contemporary market. Yeah. So I had to quietly back out of Joe's office, you know, sort of nodding my head, going, great idea, Joe, and go back to my office and be freaked out.
Meanwhile, a young Cal Arts graduate, Donovan Cook, would pitch a show to Hanna Barbera about 2 dogs, which he based on 2 stray dogs who were roaming around his apartment. This would result in 2 Stupid Dogs, which featured the adventures of a small dog, aptly named Little Dog, and his best friend, a large sheepdog named Big Dog, as they get in trouble in situations involving drive-ins, space shuttles, post offices, and more. While he was working at Spumco on a Ren and Stimpy show, Donovan pitched the show everywhere, but it was Hanna Barbera that took interest in it.
So we pitched all around, and Hanna Barbera was one of the last places. Hanna Barbera happened to be making Tom and Jerry kids short cartoons, so when I took the show to Warner Brothers or Fox TV, or a lot of those places, they would say, yeah, it looks like it would be funny, but they're shorts. What do you do with them? I would be, well, you put 3 of them together and you get half hour. I mean, that's how we watched Looney Tunes, so it was a little weird that so many television and production executives wouldn't really know what to do with it, but at Hanna-Barbera, they were making these Tom and Jerry kids shorts, so they immediately knew how to put shorts on television, and I pitched to Margot McDonough, who was the creative executive there at the time, and she got it and liked it. The crazy thing is, this got pitched on a Tuesday, and on Thursday, Turner took over the company. So there was quite a bit of turmoil, and it took quite a long time to make the deal because they were interested and liked it, but for months they had no idea who was going to run the company. David Kirshner was running Hanna-Barbera at the time, but they had no idea who was going to run it, and finally, they found Fred Seibert, but it then was months before he came to California to take over, so it was a long, drawn-out process, as it often is, but it all worked out in the end.
In addition, the show was accompanied by an updated version of the 60s Hanna-Barbera classic Secret Squirrel, titled Super Secret Squirrel. Fred Seibert asked Donovan to choose a classic studio cartoon to revive with the main show 2 Stupid Dogs. Reason? It was one of Cook's favorite HB cartoons growing up. The show debuted September 11, 1993, as part of TBS Superstation's Sunday morning in front of the TV block, becoming Hanna-Barbera's first bona fide hit since the Smurfs, and ran until 1995. The show had an art style reminiscent of early HB favorites, such as Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear, with its thick outline limited look that would be imitated in many following cartoons from the mid-90s to the 2000s. Perhaps the show's biggest claim to fame is the who's who of future well-known animators that got their start working on the series. Aside from the already notable John Kay, who had recently got fired from his own show at Nickelodeon, came aboard the series to add what he would call tidbits of poor taste for the show's memorable Red episodes. Notable folks include designers Mike Moon and Paul Rudish, storyboard artists such as Conrad Verdon and Andrew Stanton, who would become big names at DreamWorks and Pixar respectively, and the writing-directing team, Tony Gregg and Bob Skainaway, who would go on to make hit shows for Disney TV animation, like The Lion King's Timon and Pumbaa, 101 Dalmatians a series, Mickey Mouse Works, and The House of Mouse. As for Donovan, after Dogs, he would go to develop Nightmare Ned for Disney, and co-direct the 2002 film Return to Neverland and a straight-to-video feature Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, 3 Musketeers. There were other crew members that helped play a role in the resurrection of Hanna-Barbera and the rise of Cartoon Network, but we'll get to them later. Right now, let's talk about another hit that would differ from Hanna-Barbera's usual style. Enter Swat Kats, the Radical Squadron. Set in the fictional anthropomorphic town of Mega Cat City, the show featured 2 vigilantes, former law enforcers Jake Racer Clausen and Chance T-Bone Furlong as they saved their town from the villain of the week. The series was the brainchild of brothers Christian and Yvonne Tremblay, who developed the idea years before it became a series. They pitched out several different animation studios who might be interested, and it was Hanna Barbera that took a chance on the two young artists.
Being there at Hanna Barbera studio, just being there and doing a production, it was the most amazing thing, and it's something that we didn't take for granted. Joe Barbera and William Hanna had invented the medium. They had invented the medium of simplicity with very limited animation, but because of that, they have created a new genre. They had to focus on personalities and characters. And because the medium was television, and in television the most important aspect is you have very strong personality and characters that you can identify with, they had invented that medium for television and animation. And Joe Barbera and William Hanna being actually at the studio in their offices, and they would come around, and we would stop by, we would talk, we'd see them. Just that is when I think about it again, was such a privilege that it's one of the greatest memories.
The show aired for 2 seasons, simultaneously in syndication and on TBS's Sunday morning in front of the TV block. It was a hit with the kid audience, becoming the #1 syndicated animated show of 1994. The success of the show led to merchandise, including action figures and a Super NES video game. Sadly, the show would come under fire due to criticisms of its violence.
We have more cartoons than anybody. The Flintstones, the Jetsons, the Smurfs, Scooby-Doo, they're non-violent. We don't have to worry that we're encouraging kids to kill each other like some other cartoon programs do.
Though this was directed at shows like Beavis and Butthead, which had violence that could be imitated by young children, such as the infamous Fire episode. And with that, the show was canceled with 3 unfinished episodes, but gained a second life when reruns aired on Cartoon Network, and developed a cult following. Since the 2010s, there have been talks of a Swat Kats revival, Swat Kats Revolution, with a highly publicized Kickstarter that became a success. Will we ever see T-Bone and Razor again? Time will only tell. Oh, well, never mind. 1993 saw the return of Bill and Joe's Tom and Jerry on a big screen, and Tom and Jerry the movie. Because of Hanna-Barbera's workload, their studio would not make the film. Instead, the duties being handled to animator Phil Roman by his studio Film Roman, who was at the time known for producing many Garfield specials, and Joseph Barbera was a creative consultant. The movie saw Tom and Jerry becoming friends and helping an orphan girl escape her cruel aunt and find her father. The movie was notable for having original music by the famed Henry Mancini, and would be one of the last productions he worked on before he died. Critics were not impressed by the film, and it was a bomb at the box office. Most of the criticism was directed at the titular duo talking. William Hanna would co-produce the 20th Century Fox film Once Upon a Forest with David Kirshner. Originally titled The Endangered, the movie was an environmental tale of 3 young animals, or furlings as they're called, on a quest to find a cure for their sick friend who was poisoned by chemical fumes. Despite its poor reception, Hanna was proud of the work the studio did.
It is the finest feature production we have ever done. When I stood up and presented it to the studio, my eyes teared up. It is very, very heartwarming.
In 1993, filming began on a live-action adaptation of The Flintstones, produced by Steven Spielberg, directed by Brian Levant, and starring John Goodman as Fred Flintstone, Elizabeth Perkins as Wilma, Rick Moranis as Barney, and Rosie O'Donnell as Betty, along with Kyle MacLachlan and newcomer Halle Berry as the antagonists. The film was released by Universal Pictures on May 27, 1994, to negative reviews, who criticized the story in adult tone, but the visual effects, sets, and performances, particularly Goodman as Fred Flintstone, were praised. The movie was also heavily promoted and ended up earning $342 million worldwide. Later that same year, Hanna-Barbera would team up with David Kirshner in a newly formed Turner Feature Animation to co-produce the Macaulay Culkin vehicle, The Pagemaster. Kirshner would produce and co-write the script. The movie ended up being a critical and financial bomb, but would gain a small following in recent years. Of course, the channel can't survive on reruns alone, so with that, Turner and Hanna-Barbera decided to focus their attention on original programming for Cartoon Network, canceling several projects based on their classic characters. Fred Seibert and Hanna-Barbera would come up with an idea that would become the blueprint of many popular cartoons of the 90s and 2000s. That idea would be World Premiere Toons, aka What a Cartoon. The concept will be a throwback to the golden age of animation, where many artists and animators, most from HB staff, will create 48 7-minute shorts that were similar in structure to theatrical cartoons. Ones that were well received would spin off to their own series on Cartoon Network. And the best part, full creative control was given to the artists, and creators with no executive interference. The idea was brilliant, as well as innovative, and while there were similar ideas before, like Liquid Television, World Premiere Toons were far more popular.
We didn't care what the sitcom trends were, what Nickelodeon was doing, what the sales departments wanted. We wanted cartoons.
Since What a Cartoon was essentially a love letter to the golden age of animation, Seibert was taught by legends such as William Hanna, Joseph Barbera, and famed Looney Tunes director Friz Freleng, who showed him how animated shorts back then were made. John Kricfalusi was also one of the first people Fred approached with searching for new talent. Said new talent consisted of young animators who pitched their ideas to Fred and the studio, many of whom were Cal Arts graduates who did previous work for Hanna-Barbera, such as Gendy Tartakovsky, Greg McCracken, Butch Hartman, newcomer Van Particle, Rob Brazzetti, Pat Ventura, and David Feiss. Animators within and out the studio began to pitch ideas, such as longtime veterans Jerry Eisenberg, Don Jurich, Bruno Brozetto, and Ralph Bakshi. Hanna-Barbera founders and chairman William Hanna and Joseph Barbera even got in on the act and directed several shorts separately. Bill will create the shorts Hard Luck Duck and Wind Up Wolf. Both will be the last cartoons he would direct, while Joe would write and direct a couple of shorts centering on the Flintstones character Dino.
Don't miss this! World Premiere Toons! A brand new cartoon every single week, created by some major toon talent, like Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera, the guys who brought you the Stones, the Jetsons, and Scooby-Doo! Then there's heavyweights like Ralph Bakshi, creator of Cool World, and new guys like Craig McCracken, who's making his first toon ever! The top toon talent on the planet! It's coming together to make World Premiere Toons! Catch the very first one on Monday, February 20th at 8 p.m., only on the Cartoon Network!
World Premiere Toons made its debut February 20th, 1995 during a Space Ghost Coast to Coast special, President's Day Nightmare, where many of the short's creators made an appearance. The first short to ever air was Greg McCracken's Powerpuff Girls and Meet Fuzzy Lumpkins, in which 3 kindergartners with superpowers saved their town from the villainous Fuzzy Lumpkins, a hillbilly adventure creature who turns the whole city into meat. The shorts will air every Sunday, preceding the Mr. Spin's Cartoon Theater block, and will be promoted heavily on Cartoon Network and the other Turner stations. Some of the shorts were even featured as bonus cartoons on the VHS releases of more classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Notable shorts include 2 Georgia Jr. cartoons, a Ren and Stimpy-esque update of the classic MGM characters, No Tip, about a pizza boy trying to deliver a pizza in Antarctica, the Academy Award nominated Chicken from Outer Space, where a small dog named Courage tries to stop an alien chicken from taking over the Earth, and Shake and Flick, a short about a flea and a poodle one-upping each other. Another short, Larry and Steve, will be created by a newcomer to Hanna-Barbera, a Rhode Island School of Design graduate, who based the short on his student film, Life of Larry. He would continue with the studio as a writer and storyboard artist. The newcomer was Seth MacFarlane. The original run of What a Cartoon would end in November 1997, but would be revived under several different monikers with new shorts and new talent. In 1995, Hanna-Barbera would release Dumb and Dumber on ABC, based on the hit Jim Carrey film. It would be the last Hanna-Barbera cartoon to air on Saturday mornings on broadcast network television. At this time, Turner started focusing on original programming for their channel, resulting in Cartoon Network's earliest hits and Hanna-Barbera's Swan Song.
You know, I'm addicted to cartoons. It's very, I should check into the Betty Boop wing. It's like... I mean, have you seen Johnny Bravo, that great cartoon?
No, I have
Oh,
not.
it's like Elvis on steroids. It's Thank you, my pretty lady.
Really?
Oh,
is it on now, or is it
It's
on
on Cartoon Network,
Oh, it
probably
is?
as we speak. But and another wonderful cartoon called Dexter. Have you seen that?
No,
Cow and Chicken.
I have not.
Well, so we'll have to get you.
But I do remember.
We'll start you slow, girl.
The first short that became a series was Dexter's Laboratory. The show follows a boy genius who has a secret laboratory in his room where he hides from his parents. He constantly gets himself into trouble due to his inventions and his older sister Dee Dee interfering. The show had other segments, such as Dial M for Monkey, where Dexter's pet monkey leads a double life as a crime-fighting superhero, and The Justice Friends, which parodies of Marvel superheroes live together in an apartment in a satire of sitcoms. Series creator Jenny Tartakovsky based Dexter and Dee Dee on a sibling relationship with his older brother Alex, where Tartakovsky pestered Alex as kids. The characters will first appear in a short film he created while studying animation at Cal Arts. The short had a university screening for the producers of Batman the Animated Series, who hired Jenny right out of college. Gendy later got a job at Hanna Barbera, working on Two Stupid Dogs, where he first met future collaborators Craig McCracken, Paul Rudish, and Rob Renzetti. With time to pitch to What a Cartoon, Gendy reworked his student film and the characters to who we know now as Dexter and Dee Dee.
One of our producers had seen Gendy's student film and said, you should pitch that as a short.
They wanted something newer and different, so they were trying all these creator-driven cartoons.
Basically what ended up happening is me, Gendy, and Paul Rudish, we all three produced that Dexter short together.
Changes premiered as the second short of world premiere Toons on February 26, 1995, and will receive positive reception from viewers. It was even nominated for an Emmy.
Hey, check out the buzz on Dexter's Laboratory.
I like the cartoon because it's about a scientist that likes science.
It was really cool. The music was awesome. The characters were cool. I liked the little girl. Her voice was great. The colors are great. The animation was great. It was funny and crazy.
I liked your cartoon because I thought it was funny and cute. Thank you for letting me comment.
It was really cute. It was child-oriented, and we want more.
The show premiered April 28, 1996 on TNT, and the next day on Cartoon Network and TBS, becoming a huge hit. Critics and audiences praised the show for its humor, characters, and innovative animation style that harkens back to the older Hanna-Barbera, UPA cartoons, and Japanese anime. Even Betty Cohen would name the show as one of her favorite cartoons. Dexters Lab was one of the network's highest rated series for years. It even spawned merchandise, such as toys, video games, albums, comics. He even made an appearance at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. The show originally ended in 1998, but would return the following year in a TV movie's finale, Ego Trip, where Dexter uses a time machine to save the future. Popular demand would lead to 2 more seasons without Jenny's involvement, and ending in 2003. Dexter's Lab remains one of the Cartoon Network's best shows. Not only did it usher a new renaissance in Hanna-Barbera and CN's history, but it's important to television animation in general. Though not as often as before, Hanna-Barbera was still able to revisit their most classic characters in some revivals. Cave Kids, a spin-off of the Flintstones, focused on the imaginative adventures of babies Pebbles and Bam Bam, along with Dino. Despite aiming for younger audiences, the show only lasted for 8 episodes and followed to obscurity. The anticipated Johnny Quest revival, The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, featured a slightly older version of the characters, embarking on globe-trotting adventures investigating mysterious phenomena, not unlike the original show. The series is probably best remembered for its memorable opening intro, and also the Quest World segments were the earliest examples of CGI for television. Production of the show was a certified mess, with Hanna-Barbera firing developer Peter Lawrence and switching out many of the original cast and crew and scrambling to finish what was left. Real Adventures also had a massive marketing campaign leading up to its release. The show aired on Cartoon Network, TBS, and TNT, and ended up being canceled after 52 episodes due to low ratings, and the merchandise ended up performing poorly. This did not faze Hanna-Barbera, as they intended to continue to work on projects with their most famous characters. But there being an unexpected merger that would throw a wrench in those plans. On October 10th, 1996, Ted Turner's Turner Broadcasting would merge with Time Warner, owner of Warner Brothers. Warner would now have 3 animation studios in their possession: Warner Brothers Animation, Turner Feature Animation, later to be folded into Warner Feature Animation, and now Hanna Barbera Productions. This would be a fortunate news to the crew who were working on revivals. Ed Scarlett, who would later become a writer for several Scooby-Doo productions in the 2000s, recalls the idea of a Jetsons reboot, which was canceled as soon as the merger happened.
Well, we walked the halls briefly, my partner Eva Almus and I at the time, because they wanted to revive the Jetsons, and we wrote the script that would have revived it, where, if you remember, their robot housekeeper was Rosie, and they decided they would try something, this is the future, they would just try something revolutionary. Instead of having a robot housekeeper, this is revolutionary, they thought about bringing a real live person as the way of the future, as the housekeeper. And they brought in this character that replaced, first of all, the kids, they were all sad because Rosie wasn't working with them anymore. Then this obnoxious housekeeper came in who cried and had all these human emotions, and they realized at the end that how much they appreciated Rosie and brought her back. Anyway, just when they were about to animate this was the point where Hanna-Barbera was sold to Warner Brothers, and they did not go ahead with the Jetson revival series. But we were hired to write the last, I guess you'd call it kind of a pilot script for the new series that eventually didn't go anywhere.
As for Cartoon Network, in 1997, many of the cartoons from Warner Brothers Animation found themselves on the channel, as well as many of the post-1948 Looney Tunes cartoons. That same year, Hanna-Barbera released 2 more shows spun off from Warner Cartoon, Johnny Bravo and Cow and Chicken. Johnny Bravo centers on the bizarre predicaments of our title character, who sounds like Elvis Presley, looks like James Dean, and moves like Michael Jackson. A buff, self-proclaimed ladies' man who lives with his mother, Buddy Bravo, and is constantly annoyed by the next-door neighbor, Little Susie. Johnny goes to extreme lengths to get a date, but let's not count on things going his way. Creator Van Partible created a short film while studying animation at Loyola Marymount University. Mess o' Blues, about 3 Elvis impersonators. Partible's professor showed it to a friend who worked at Hanna-Barbera. They loved it so much, they asked Van to develop it in a short for their World Premiere Tunes showcase. The short Johnny Bravo premiered on World Premiere Tunes March 26, 1995. It was named Tune of the Year in a poll of Cartoon Network viewers. It was followed by Johnny Bravo and the Amazon Woman and Jungle Boy, a one-hour short created by Partible, spoofing Tarzan. Partible, a huge fan of Hanna-Barbera, hired many HB legends when developing the show. Ed Benedict, the man responsible for creating the look of some of the studio's earlier hits, was hired by Partible as a background consultant. Joseph Barbera was also a story consultant and would pal around with the other writers. The show is famous for its smear animation technique.
I was watching this one short, this Warner Brothers short called The Dover Boys, and they had this smear technique where you would have one position here, and if you had to get over here, you would just do this giant smear. So instead of in-betweening all these things, you would just have one giant drawing. I'm like, I love that. That cuts down on my animation.
For the voices, actor Jeff Bennett was chosen to play Johnny due to Partible loving his Elvis impersonation.
I remember auditioning and Van saying, I think I heard you do an Elvis impression before, and that's what I want this character to be, is Elvis. And I said, old or young, because they're kind of 2 different voices. For a while, he slowed down and started to be this kind of guy. But when he was young, everything was kind of light and everything rolled off his tongue a little bit more. He said, yeah, younger, but somewhere in between, but, hyped.
The thing that made him stand out was the hurrah! No one did that. That was all him. And so when you're listening to all these auditions of people, he played the young, sexy Elvis.
Coincidentally enough, Jeff voiced another character at the same time who had a similar Elvis drawl, the character Tex Tinstar from Disney's Snookums and Meat.
Yeah, well it is, man.
And I just don't like the smell of your donuts, Rongo.
Tony and Oscar-nominated actress Brenda Vaccaro voiced Bunny Bravo, and Little Susie was voiced by young Mae Whitman. The show debuted in July 1997. Memorable episodes include a crossover with the characters from Scooby-Doo, a Schoolhouse Rock parody, an episode where Johnny dates a deer, a parody of Green Eggs and Ham involving Susie trying to sell Johnny Girl Scout cookies, and 2 episodes featuring special appearances from Adam West and Donny Osmond. The series was on hiatus after the first season, but was greenlit for 2 more. Sadly, creator Van Partible was let go from the show as a result of the Time Warner merger. Van, who was working on ideas for his eventually scrapped second season with Seth MacFarlane, was replaced by a new production crew from Warner Brothers, who had just finished working on Pinky and the Brain, including Gary Hartle and Kirk Tingblad. Executives at Cartoon Network had wanted the new writers, Jed Spingarn, create new characters to play off Johnny. These included Geeky Carl, who frequently annoys Johnny, and Pops, the owner of a diner who serves very questionable meals. In addition, the writing became sharper, and the world of Johnny Bravo was redesigned by Hartle and Tingblad. The retooled version was received rather well and lasted until 2002. Part of what we brought back to the series with the 2001 Christmas special and the 2003 Valentine's Day special. These would become so successful, Van would head the show's final season in 2004. While most of the elements of the show's first season returned, it wasn't as successful ratings-wise. It ended in 2004 with the episode Johnny Makeover / Back on Shack, where Johnny gets a makeover by Don Knotts, Weird Al, and the Blue Falcon, and helps Shaquille O'Neal win a basketball game against Seth Green and Huckleberry Hound. Yeah, this is a weird show. The show has become a cult hit. Johnny remained one of CNN's most memorable characters. The show had a spin-off, toys, and launched the careers of several notable names. Johnny was last seen in the 2011 special, Johnny Goes to Bollywood, and the series hasn't yet become available on HBO Max. Could there be a comeback? Time will only tell. Given how children who grew up with the series are now adults, it's a possibility.
Thumbs up. I am Johnny Bravo, a mister of the universe.
One of Hanna Barbera's most surreal cartoons during this period was Cow and Chicken, centered around 2 siblings, a 7-year-old 400-pound cow and her older 11-year-old brother Chicken, who live in suburbia with their human parents, who are only seen from the waist down, constantly have run-ins with the very flamboyant devil named the Red Guy. Creator David Feiss had been at Hanna Barbera since 1978, working on the 80s revival of the Jetsons, as well as the feature film. When it came time to submit short for the What a Cartoon Show, David pitched 3 ideas to exec producer Larry Huber.
When I got this call from Larry Huber, who was an old friend of mine who'd been working at Hanna Barbera for many years, and he said, "Hey, they're looking for new shorts. Would you like to pitch them an idea?" I said, "Yeah, I have a fresh idea." And within a number of weeks, it had sold, and within a year, I was doing a series.
The short No Smoking premiered November 12, 1995. It was nominated for an Emmy. Audience responses to the short was so positive, it was greenlit for a series that premiered July 15, 1997.
Cow and Chicken changed my career because it was the first production that was actually my original idea, my jokes, and my animation, my style. It was very exciting, it was challenging, but I was having a blast. It was just so much fun.
The show had a backup segment called I Am Weasel, which centered on a beloved, intelligent weasel voiced by Star Trek The Next Generation's Michael Dorn and a dim-witted baboon named IR. The latter tries to upstage Weasel, but with little success. This segment and characters became so popular they migrated to their own spin-off. Voice legend Charlie Adler voiced 4 of the main characters, Cow, Chicken, the Red Guy, and IR Baboon. Cow's voice was based on Ellen Green's performance as Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors, while Chicken's voice was based on himself at 11. The show lasted for 52 episodes and ended in 1999. Cow and Chicken would continue to make appearances on later Cartoon Network material, such as Cartoon Fridays, several video games, bumpers, and cameos.
Will nobody come out to serve us? Sister, you just said a mouthful of something. I'm out of here.
As for their creator, David Feiss, he would continue to direct shorts, commercials, as well as work on films such as Open Season and Despicable Me 2. Cow and Chicken may not have set the world on fire like some of the other cartoons, but they do deserve to be acknowledged for helping put CN's original programming on the map.
Cow and Chicken!
With Hanna Barbera becoming a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, one of Time Warner's first acts was to close the Cahuenga studio and move Hanna Barbera and all studio operations, archives, and animation art collection to a new studio in Sherman Oaks, where Warner Brothers Animation was located, as it was too expensive to have Hanna Barbera operating in its own facility. This would be orchestrated by WB president and former Hanna Barbera executive Gene McCurdy. There were even rumors of the old studio being torn down, or Universal Studios using it for extra office space. The new merger would cause Fred Seibert to resign as president of Hanna-Barbera and would go on to start Frederator Studios to develop Oh Yeah cartoons for Nickelodeon. Similar to What a Cartoon, the shows that would spin off from Oh Yeah were Chalk Zone, My Life as a Teenage Robot, and The Fairly Odd Parents, all shows created by former HB alumni, with the latter show becoming a huge hit for both Nickelodeon and creator Butch Hartman respectively. In 1997, after being on Cahuenga Boulevard since 1963, the entire studio was packed up and moved to an office building next door to the Sherman Oaks Galleria, where movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Valley Girl were filmed. The Imperial Bank Building, as it was called, was located on the 14th floor and would become the new home of Hanna-Barbera, operating alongside Warner Brothers, where productions like the retooled Johnny Bravo seasons, some of the cartoon shorts, I Am Weasel, and the early Scooby-Doo direct-to-video movies were made. Shortly after their move to Sherman Oaks, Seth MacFarlane would also leave Hanna-Barbera after executives at the Fox network were impressed by his Larry and Steve shorts and contracted him to create a series based on it. This would result in the previously short-lived but now long-running series Family Guy, along with several other hits he created for Fox, such as American Dad, The Cleveland Show, and The Orville. Another series that was in production at the Cahuenga studio but continued during the move to Sherman Oaks would be the last television series under the Hanna-Barbera name, though at this point used for marketing purposes. And that was the Powerpuff Girls. With the ingredients of sugar, spice, and everything nice, scientist Professor Utonium accidentally adds Chemical X, which tried to create children of his own. It happens, resulting in the creation of 3 crime-fighting kindergartner superheroes: Blossom, the straightforward leader; Bubbles, the happy-go-lucky innocent; and Buttercup, the rough-and-tough tomboy. Together, they are known as the Powerpuff Girls, as they saved the city from Townsville from a rogues gallery of villains. The Amoeba Boys, Fuzzy Lumpkins, Him, Princess, the Gang Green Gang, and of course, Mojo Jojo, while also dealing with problems of adolescence. The show is based on a short film creator Greg McCracken made while in his second year at Cal Arts called Whoop Ass Stew. The designs of the girls were influenced by the paintings of Margaret Keane.
You remember those big, sad-eyed girls, these pathetically upset children? I was doing stupid drawings of those, and I came up with these little girls who were cute. Over the years, they evolved, where now they have even bigger eyes, and they're a little shorter.
After graduating from college, Craig got a job working at Hanna-Barbera and was the art director of Two Stupid Dogs, where he would befriend his future collaborators.
Here we were, just a bunch of young kids out of Cal Arts, kind of given the chance to work on a television series.
We started coming in, and we're young, and we have all these ideas, and we want to change stuff and do stuff differently.
It was great, though. We loved it. We had so much fun. We'd sit down and work, and then some days we'd just be going wild for like hours.
Craig would end up pitching the Whoop Ass Girls to Margot McDonough. It was then picked up as a series. But then What a Cartoon came along, and instead of a half-hour series, Craig would have a start making a short first, with several changes, including replacing the word Whoop Ass with Powerpuff, and replacing the can of Whoop Ass with Chemical X. The short Meet Fuzzy Lumpkins premiered as the first What a Cartoon short. Unfortunately, it wasn't as popular as the Dexters Lab short, and it got harsh reception from a test audience of 11-year-old boys.
I'm sitting there with the president of Hanna Barbera and Cartoon Network execs and behind this glass and going, well, there goes my career. I just totally blew it. I'm not going to ever get a chance to make this as a series.
Kids weren't as used to watching this, and this had a real personality and attitude and voice that nobody had seen, so there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve.
Craig panicked that afternoon, and he came back that evening and redesigned the whole show in a night.
I went, they're too weird. They don't have fingers, they don't have ears, and some people thought they were bugs.
I was in that focus group. I had a problem with the fingers.
But I got this call from Mike Lazo, and he basically told me, he said, Craig, look, we like this short, and I know you got a negative reaction, but I'm much more interested in a negative reaction than a lukewarm reaction. We believe in it, and we want to do another short with it.
And with that, the second short, Crime 101, aired January 1996. Turns out, Dexters Lab, created by Craig's friend, Gendy, was greenlit to be a series first. But Craig came aboard as an art director and storyboard artist.
He did a couple of boards that I just thought were the best things I'd ever seen. And I remember saying to Mike Lazo at that point, if Craig can do boards that are that funny, he can probably do anything. So maybe we should just go back to Powerpuff.
With the education he got working on Dexter's Lab, Craig went back to work on production, and the show premiered in the fall of 1998 on Cartoon Network and received positive reviews from critics and won several Emmy and Annie Awards. The show didn't just become another hit. No. It became a phenomenon. Not only was it a ratings hit, becoming one of the most watched shows on the channel's Friday night schedule, but it was also a merchandising juggernaut. Powerpuff Girls had a wide variety of products, toys, video games, books, albums, t-shirts, comics, even a breakfast cereal.
Maybe if we were lucky, we'd get maybe a few t-shirts in a couple of record stores or some hip stores. I mean, that's all I really thought could possibly happen. And the next thing you knew, it blew up, and it was pretty much everywhere.
These are friggin' cool. Cute. Yeah, they're big.
The success of the show led to Warner Brothers greenlighting the Powerpuff Girls movie, which debuted in cinemas summer of 2002. The film had very poor marketing from Warner Brothers, who spent all their advertising on a live-action Scooby-Doo movie, as well as having the misfortune of coming out the same summer as Men in Black 2, Like Mike, Lilo and Stitch, and Spider-Man. While receiving positive reviews from critics, the movie ended up becoming a bomb at the box office, grossing $16 million worldwide, over an $11 million budget.
In hindsight, maybe I wish it was a little sillier, a little lighter, a little more, not so heavy the whole time.
The show aired for 2 more seasons, without the involvement of Craig, who left the show to create a new show for Cartoon Network, and aired the final season of 2005. This wouldn't be the last we see of the girls, as they would make several different comebacks, such as a reimagined anime adaptation, what the hell, several TV specials, a reboot in 2016, as well as an upcoming live-action CW series, Powerpuff, by Heather Ringer and Diablo Cody, which for some reason is still happening. Despite this, the original is still seen as a classic, and attracted audiences of all genders, with their timeless characters, sharp writing, and fast-paced action, and it continues to be a fave. Play me out, Tom Kenny.
So once again, the day is saved, thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. So long, everybody.
As the 90s would come to a close, the Hanna Barbera name would slowly but surely begin to disappear from the CN originals. This would be appropriate, as new cartoons would appear on the channel from outside studios, but the network had a hand in producing, such as AKA Cartoons, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Kino Films, Mike Lou and Og, Stretch Films, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and Curious Pictures' Sheep in a Big City, and codenamed Kids Next Door. As more and more original programming headed to Cartoon Network, the more classic cartoons were getting phased out. So on April 1st, 2000, Cartoon Network launched its second channel, Boomerang. Originally a programming block for the network's early years, Boomerang was a commercial-free channel aimed at baby boomers who grew up with the likes of Huckleberry Hound, Bugs Bunny, Yankee Doodle, and Gloop and Gleep. It could now watch them 24 hours a day. Now, why does that seem familiar? That same month, Universal released a sequel to the live-action Flintstones movie, The Flintstones and Viva Rock Vegas. Brian Levant returned to direct, but the cast was replaced by Mark Addy as Fred, Stephen Baldwin as Barney, Jen Kowalski as Betty, and Kristen Johnson as Wilma, with Alan Cumming playing a CG Great Kazoo. Critics gave the film negative reviews, but some liked it better than its predecessor. It ended up bombing at the box office, grossing only $59.5 million against its $83 million budget, and it marked the end of Universal's licensing of Hanna Barbera properties. Meanwhile, the CN crew of the Imperial Bank Building needed space, which the building never seemed to have much of. The crew would transfer production offices to a new facility in Burbank. Enter Cartoon Network Studios, headed by former Deke employees Jennifer Pelfrey and Brian A. Miller. The studio opened its doors May 22, 2000. It was christened by Joseph Barbera with a bottle of champagne. Robert Alvarez, who worked at Hanna Barbera since the 70s and still at Cartoon Network Studios to this day, recalls,
"When we moved to Burbank to start the Cartoon Network studio, everything changed for the better. Cartoon Network was a lot like the old Hanna Barbera studio. I'm glad that we made the move."
The first show in production at the new studio was a time-traveling comedy called Time Squad, which would then be followed by Jenny Tartakovsky's Samurai Jack, Grim and Evil, the TV special The Flintstones on the Rocks, Greg McCracken's Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Ben 10, as well as many cartoons the studio continues to make to this day. By the time of the Warner Brothers takeover, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, despite being in their mid-80s, were still coming into work every day, eager to help out, and were given their own offices in the Imperial Bank Building. However, on March 22, 2001, an era was over. William Hanna passed away in his home at the age of 90 in North Hollywood and was buried in the Ascension Cemetery in Lake Forest, California. His health was declining for quite some time, and he had Alzheimer's in his later years. His death marked the end of his 70-year partnership with Joe Barbera. The two weren't exactly best friends and rarely interacted outside of work, but they did complement each other's talents and abilities. The two personalities were as different as night and day.
Bill and Joe's relationship, I saw them as they were two guys who worked together like a machine, and Bill had his area of expertise and Joe had his.
They were like totally different. Joe drove a black Cadillac, Bill a white Lincoln. Bill's office is all light-colored, lit up beautifully. Joe just like a nightclub.
The example of perhaps a married couple who know each other so well that they're finishing each other's sentences and speaking in shorthand and such.
Yeah, Bill would run production at the studio. Joe would handle the creative side of things.
And they worked together beautifully, and such harmony. They really liked each other.
After his death, Cartoon Network would air a short bumper in his memory. Direct-to-video movies, Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase, Scooby-Doo and the Legend of the Vampire, Scooby-Doo and the Monster of Mexico, and Flintstones on the Rocks were dedicated to Hanna. With Bill's death, the shutdown of the studio and the name was completed and was now fully absorbed into Warner Brothers Animation. The shows Hanna-Barbera made for Cartoon Network were now completely made and owned by Cartoon Network Studios. The studio, which was originally a subsidiary of Hanna-Barbera, was now resurrected as its own separate entity. Some would even say to pick up where Hanna-Barbera left off. Barbera would remain in his office at Warner's, and the Hanna-Barbera characters were now officially part of the Warner Brothers family. The question is, where do we go from here? If you want to support this series and many other videos, click the link below to my Patreon. You get a special credit, early access, shout out to your channel or blog, even a cartoon character commissioned by me. And also don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I thank you, and I gotta fly.